All right, well, let's dive into the first topic of the day. Megan Fox and Machine Gun Kelly, they have ended their pretty rocky relationship. And sadly, they've called it quits right after they just revealed they are expecting a baby together. So a source is telling Us Weekly that they are both, quote, too hot-headed and stubborn, and fell back into constant fighting. Unfortunately, this isn't the first time that they've actually split up since they started dating back in 2020. It's a kind of an on-again, off-again situation. Yeah. So, Perdita, the question is, when it comes to ups and downs and what might be considered a toxic relationship, when should the on-off just be off?
It should be off. I find them a little bit toxic, but it's not really my business, but I'm gonna make it my business now. I feel like your gut knows, right? As women, we have a sixth sense and intuition. I think she knows, and I look at him, I'm like, he's very interesting. So Megan, run, girl, run. I think
I know, but wait, don't you wait. Don't you also feel like this is what, growing up, I'd hear like women like this, we would call women who would have prepaid man problems. These are women who are involved with somebody where you know they're not good for you, but because of the sex or your unresolved childhood trauma, you keep going back again
Sex
and again.
will do that. Sex will do that.
And we've seen plenty of celebrity couples go through this. I'm thinking like Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee. Remember, they were pretty toxic. Then, of course, it was Whitney and Bobby. And then, of course, most recently, Cardi B and Offset. And those relationships never worked. But I think those relationships are very important. And there are a lot of people who wouldn't be married today if they didn't date that toxic guy. And hear me out. I think you learn a lot more about yourself, your self-esteem, your boundaries, what your needs versus your wants are in those toxic relationships. And I'm not talking about the ones where people are in physical harm, but the ones where you really sharpen you and go, I can never do this again. I don't want this in my future.
Boy.
Well, not the bad. Well, there's bad boy, but even you were saying earlier this week, Cynthia, you were saying like you would not have chosen Jason if you hadn't dated a couple knuckleheads. Is that
absolutely true? Absolutely true. Yeah, but I think it's that word toxic. I don't think I ever had that dynamic, or at least not to the degree that I perceive their relationship as being like sort of like fight, like really have huge blow up fights, and then probably end up in the bed. That is a dynamic that I think we all have either like touched a little bit of or known people who've done that full on.
I mean, it sounds a little bit exciting.
Well, I think it's dysfunctional, and I think the thing is the question off the top is like, when does that become something else? We all know in long-term relationships you're going to go through ups and downs, but I think as soon as you have kids, if that's your dynamic, the fight, and do the other thing that starts with F, then I don't think it's the greatest dynamic to display for kids, because kids are always watching and they emulate. This probably came from both of them watching dysfunction in their own lives. It could be.
I think they both come from, you know, a lot of trauma in their lives for sure. At a certain point, except for, as Andrea, you mentioned, as long as it's not, you know, no one's in danger, I think there's a certain point where someone's got to grab you and say, grow up. Just grow up. And I think there is a phase, we go through this all, we talked about bad boys earlier in the week, but I think for me at this age anyway, in my wisdom, what I've learned is, you know what is invaluable? You cannot put a price on your peace. Your inner peace. And this roller coaster and the toxicity and the fighting and then the crazy lovemaking and then the fighting again, that sounds really tiring. And I got no energy for that.
And you gotta think about what you're passing on to your children, right? Yeah. That is such a toxic thing, I think, to pass on. And a lot of people want to stay for the kids. I don't believe in that. I feel like your kids can feel things, even if they're 1, 2, whatever, they can feel your energy, and you want to pass on things. I have the saying, give a childhood to your child that they don't have to recover from when they're older, when they're adults. That's the best gift.
I will say this. It's always interesting that the clarity on the relationship always comes when she's pregnant. It's like, we couldn't figure this out beforehand, but they'll cross that bridge and figure it out.
Hey, you, come a bit closer. We've got so many more must-see interviews, spicy debates, lifestyle tips, and pop culture moments. So subscribe to our channel by tapping the logo below and don't miss out.